Welcome to Into the Writer's Cave. I'm your host, Patricia Sargent. On this episode, we're going into the writer's cave with critically acclaimed mystery author and retired police detective, David Swinson. David, you grew up in D.C., Beirut, Stockholm, and Mexico City.
Mallorca, Spain.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah.
That's 5.
And Mallorca has a story, I'll tell you.
Oh, I'd love to hear that one.
Well, Stockholm did not have an American community school for high schoolers. So I had the choice, my older sister and I had the choice between Frankfurt and Mallorca. So, what do you think a 16-year-old boy is going to pick? He's going to pick a little island where there are girls, I didn't care about the beer, I cared about the girls, So I picked Mallorca, Spain.
Oh, that's funny. How did your sister feel about that decision?
Oh, she loved Mallorca. Yeah, she didn't care about boys or alcohol either. So we had a great time there.
Oh, that's fantastic. Do you have any more stories for like Mexico City or Beirut?
Well, Beirut actually is the backdrop for City on the Edge. My book that came out in May. Beirut was probably the most influential place I've ever lived. It meant so much. We were there during the civil war, and we were actually evacuated. And the year is just really screwed up in my head, but I'm thinking we were evacuated in 74, 75. I'm really not sure. But I was a teen and preteen there, and Beirut just really, really, in Mexico, obviously. I was like 9 years old and 10 years old in Mexico. And that was in Mexico, that was drug cartel and all that. So I could walk freely around the villages and all that. In Beirut, the same thing, pre-Civil War. I mean, I'd be in flip-flops, I'd be shirtless in shorts. We'd go uptown to Alhambra and get shawarmas and eat and just go snorkeling in the Mediterranean. We didn't have bodyguards, we didn't have anything like that. We were totally safe.
How old were you?
11, 12, 13 maybe, something like that. And totally free. I mean, until the Civil War happened, then we had the curtains had to be closed and we had to sleep on the floor away from the windows. And, we used to watch I think there were mirages bombing the Palestinian camps, and used to break curfew. And, it was curfew, didn't have school. It was like, back then it was like a grand adventure for a teen. But then when you reflect back on it now, it was like people were dying, being killed, and it was, now it's sad,
When you wrote City on the Edge, which came out in May of 2021, did you find that writing to be therapeutic?
Yeah, it was semi-autobiographical, and it actually, pissed off a lot of my Frank Marr fans. I mean, it was a critical book. I mean, a lot of the press, it was critically acclaimed and all that, but didn't do well with like the DC. I guess I'm expected to write, which I don't disagree with. I am a DC writer, but I diverted. But it was something, that was very therapeutic, and my publisher was wonderful and allowed me to write. They published it and they loved it, and so I'm thankful for that.
Super. When you say that you're a DC writer, do you mean you're expected to set all of your stories in DC, or?
I'm not expected, no, because I also grew up in Long Beach, California, so I'm not expected to, but DC is my home. I mean, I grew up in DC. I know DC, since the 70s, and so I've gone through the gentrification. I've gone through, I mean, all that, the changes. And I mean, I know DC so well that of course DC is a character in my books. And, I want to be a DC writer. Like George Pelicanos is a DC writer. Like he's so incredible, you know, it's, yeah.
So your experiences growing up in DC and Beirut and Mallorca, Stockholm, they've all impacted your writing.
Mhm.
How, in addition to the experiences, do they impact the way you interpret your characters?
Not so much, no. I mean, because my characters don't reflect my background. A detailed man, a little bit. There was a lot of semi-autobiographical stuff in A Detailed Man. I had Bell's palsy, but the Frank Marr, I'm nothing like Frank. I just totally, after A Detailed Man was, went with a very small, cool press, but was rejected by all the traditional larger presses. I decided, because I always wanted to be with a traditional larger press, but there's nothing wrong with being indie or self-publishing or anything like that. But that's just what I wanted. I decided and I always had Frank Marr in the back of my head, and I decided to just go outside of myself and write this character that is totally not me and have fun. And I had fun writing him. And I wanted this character who was like Hunter, who I knew in my background in California, because I booked shows for him, speaking engagements, is Hunter S. Thompson. So I sort of wanted a Hunter S. Thompson type character who was totally content with his lifestyle, cocaine use and all that, and someone who was not brooding and complaining, and to try to make a unlikable character likable.
So tell us about, you've started to tell us a little bit about Frank, but tell us more about him. Why did you decide to go with an anti-hero for your protagonist?
Because I really wanted to go outside of myself again and just not do a police procedural that had anything to do with, like, because you said, am I influenced by my background and by my experiences and all that? I've never done coke. I've never done anything like that, and I wanted to experience Frank Marr, and just dive into his character. And there's a lot of him that is me, the music, things like that. And would I like to get away with what he got away with? I mean, sure, I think a lot of people, but no, I mean, it was just fun. It was fun breaking away from tradition.
Frank has some serious issues. He has serious issues.
Yeah. Yes, he does.
When I was reading some of the scenes, I was like, "Ooh, Frank."
Yeah, Frank, you're no, don't do that.
Yeah, so not cool.
Yeah, I know. Yeah, it's amazing that he was so liked. And, some people hated it. I mean, I got fan mail that was like, but other fan mail was, incredible. And the critics just, for some reason, I just loved him. I don't know. I really can't tell you. I don't know why, because he's such a bad guy, but he's a likable bad guy.
I feel as though he means well. He just doesn't always do well.
No.
Would you?
I think, a lot of it too is that he doesn't complain. I think that has a big thing to do with it. He's not divorced. He doesn't have a kid, that he's struggling to get to know better. And I'm not like demeaning any of these books that, that have characters like that, but he was different in that way, that he just really had nothing in his background that he was very content with his lifestyle. But was he screwed up? Oh yeah. But did he realize he was screwed up? No, he didn't care.
You wanted to write the anti-hero, and you wanted to write a story set in DC. So when you were developing the second girl, did you start with the character or did you start with the city? Did you have the city?
Oh, the character, without a doubt. Well, actually, sort of simultaneous. I mean, both. I mean, but the character more, and then the city. But I definitely the city, was there almost equal to the character. No, I mean, I think they were both equal, actually. Yeah.
So they
DC and the character, yeah.
So they were
It had
like
to be DC.
they were born out of each other, sort of.
Yes, yeah.
Interesting. So when you were plotting, the second girl is the first book in the trilogy. When you were plotting that, are you a character-driven plotter or okay?
Definitely.
So Frank was telling you what to do.
Yes, and then I knew where I was going. The end changed a couple of times. The story took on a life of its own. Frank took me. Yeah.
Do you plot your stories or do you just sit down and write?
I write by the seat of my pants.
Wow.
I don't outline, but I take copious notes. It takes me a couple of years to write a book, and the trilogy I ended up doing in less than a couple of years per book. But Frank Marr took me about 3 years to write, or no, about 2 years. So I take tons and tons of notes until like it's in my head and I'm living it in my head. I go to bed with them. I totally live them. And then when I get down to write, it's like I have an idea where I'm going, but then something happens and I go, oh man, what just happened? It's like I want to be surprised. That's why I like first person present tense so much, is because I can surprise myself, because I don't, I don't know where, so you'll be writing all of a sudden, and then the character just takes you someplace that is so natural, and then you just go, whoa, cool.
Okay.
Or you go, crap, bad. And you try to work your way out of it.
Okay, I'm going to get a little personal with you, David. So you live with the characters, you go to sleep with them, you take notes as you're living with them. Do you talk to them out loud?
In my head, not out loud. I'm not going to go so far as to say I talk to them out loud. I talk to them in my head. Yeah, definitely.
Okay, so do you talk through the story with them?
No, the dialogue happens between the character and other characters, but then it's like I become like the character, and I'm going through, like, I mean, there are several interview scenes with or interrogation scenes with Frank Marr. They're not interrogations, where he's talking to people, and that dialogue will go through my head, and stuff like that.
Super. The critics have given you high kudos for your dialogue too, and it is terrific. Fantastic dialogue.
Yeah, thank you.
So Frank Marr, the 3 books, the first one is The Second Girl, and then could you give me the
Crime Song, and then Trigger.
Okay. And then in between Crime Song and Trigger, this City on the Edge came out?
No, after the trilogy, City on the Edge came out.
Of course. Okay, well, let's pause here. And for the viewer readers, please remember to hit like, subscribe, and post a comment to this video. Then come back for the rest of our interview with the critically acclaimed mystery author, David Swinson. Until then, happy reading.